Am I worthy? Am I worthy to what I have? Am I worthy to want more? This feeling of worthiness and this feeling of not being enough is something that, thank gosh, we're starting to hear more and more of it because people used to live it all in the closet, all within ourselves. But the thing is, we all think that we're not quite worthy for what we have, what we want, that we're not enough for what we have and what we want. So this week we talk with Sandra Chuma. Sandra Chuma is an entrepreneur, speaker, coach, podcast host, and award-winning documentary filmmaker. She's the founder and chief creating officer of wayyyyyy, which is a platform focused on helping women stop procrastinating on their dream and take confident actions towards creating a life they love without the overwhelm. Raised in a tiny mud hut in Zimbabwe with no running water or electricity, Sandra has never been one to let her circumstances define her. Through hard work and support from her village, she became a management consulting, advising major global companies. She then went on to build 2 successful companies. Despite all her professional success, she knew she wasn't walking in her purpose. Sandra made the decision to go back to school in 2005 to get a master's degree in journalism, storytelling, and documentary filmmaking from Columbia University. Through the power of story and leveraging her experience as a management consultant, Sandra has made it her mission to help others create a version of themselves. She is building a brand focused on providing inspirational tools and community. Sandra, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to Chit Chat today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's such an honor to be able to have this conversation with you.
And this conversation is long overdue together and long overdue for everyone. So the topic that I want to talk about you today is worthiness. Are we worthy of who we are, what we have, how we present ourselves, everything? Because I think it's a topic, not just I think, it is a topic that we are thinking and we are talking a lot about. Am I worth it? Tell me, from your stance, where does this, first of all, what does it mean to be worthy of what we have and who we are?
Well, if we start by just defining the word worthy, the definition, according to the dictionary, is something that has value or worth, or is of sufficient importance. And so when we ask ourselves that question, am I worthy? I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what do we mean by being worthy? And how do we define what worthiness is? A friend of mine recently, I was having a conversation with her, and she gave such a great analogy that I want to share with you. She said, if you have children, or if you have a pet that you really love, or a niece, nephew, someone who's really important to you, and someone came along and said to you, I'll give you $1 million for that, or for that person, or I'll give you 10 million. 100 million. What's the number? What's the number that we would reach to say, oh, that's our value? Mm-hmm. And that's the conversation that we have to turn to ourselves, is what's our value? How do we even begin to measure it? Like, it's immeasurable. And I think oftentimes, and especially nowadays, society has taught us that our worth and our worthiness comes from achievement, from doing. That if I can just do enough, or if I can achieve enough, then that will make me worthy. And I think fundamentally we've got to roll this conversation back and understand that you are worthy just by virtue of you being here. You are worthy to be, to do, to have anything and everything your heart desires, not because you've had to earn it, not because you've had to suffer for it, not because you've had to pay for it, but just by the fact that you exist.
Am I worthy, and am I enough? That being enoughness, they go to hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think people just sometimes use it like as a different language, and I like that. Like, we are worthy just by being who we are.
Yeah. Especially for people who are achievers, You know, we live in a world of achievers, and there's always that more, better. And we live in a world as well nowadays where the hustle culture is glorified. You know, like everybody, like if you ask anybody, how are you? I'm really busy. Like inevitably everybody tells you how busy they are. Almost like it's a badge of honor. Like if you tell someone, oh, you know, I'm just relaxing, then are you on vacation? Like it's almost you're the exception when you are allowing yourself to be, because we've been taught, as I said, like literally from when we're little ones, we're taught that you do this, you get a reward. It's almost kind of like our pets, right? Like you do this, you get a treat. And so that's what we've become conditioned, is that for me to be good enough, for me to be seen as enough, I have to have done something. And so we live in this perpetual quest of our enoughness. And you're absolutely right that worthiness, enoughness, they're so tightly linked. And so we feel that we've got to be doing to be enough. And that's part as well of why we see so much burnout culture. You know, nowadays there's that term that was coined about quiet quitting. And that's a sad thing, that's the state of our society, that people now see it as acceptable to just quit because they're quitting on themselves as well. Yes, you think you're punishing your employer, but you're quitting on yourself. And part of what I feel is driving that is the fact that we're in this culture that's go, chase constantly. And so we feel like our worth in the workplace, our worth at home, our worth wherever is defined. Our enoughness is based on what we can produce. And yet our enoughness is just being. Who are you being? That's enough.
That's so funny, because when I did my NLP certification, one of my teacher, we were talking about different topics, and she's like, Sarah, you don't need to do. You just need to be. And I looked at her, I'm like, all right, so how do I do that being? She was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But as funny as it is, it's true, many of us don't know how to be. Where does that come from?
For so many of us, like even this is my experience. I worked in corporate. I was in the hustle, the grind, the go. Then I became an entrepreneur. And as you know, on entrepreneurship, it's like 24/7, right? There is no day off. And so I had become attuned and accustomed to always going. And so similar to you, when I eventually did find personal development and my coach said, you need to be, that was my question too. What do I need to do to be? And for me, the ultimate punishment was just sit and do nothing. Just be with yourself. I'm like, but I need to be doing something. And I think that that's where we need to start, is that we think that we need to do, and then we will have, and then we will be happy, right? And yet, really, it's the other way around. We first need to be, then we do, then we have, right? Whatever it is that you want stems from who you are being. And that being, when people ask me, what does being mean? I think foundationally, one of the things that being means is, are you in alignment with who you truly are? Are you in alignment? Are you living your values? Do you even know what your core values are? You know, I didn't know what my core, if you'd ask me, what are your core values? I didn't know what my core values were, because I was always, I was backwards, right? I was always like, I've got to do. So it was all about the goals. Like, I want to achieve this much money and this many sales and this much. And yet, what it all comes down to is, no matter how much money you make, no matter how many goals you check off, if you're not in alignment with your most authentic self, if you're not able to look at yourself in the mirror and be at peace with who you are, if you're not able to sit in silence with yourself, then that tells you you're out of alignment of being. Being really starts with, who am I? And what are my values, not what society tells me.
I love that, because, and one thing that I talk about and that I believe is that integrity with ourselves comes with clarity. So understanding our values, and I know by experience, whenever I ask people about their values, I will get things like respect, hard work, doing values, and not being values. So how do you help someone identify their values?
Your values, whether you know it or not, you're always somehow living your values or in conflict with your values. And so ultimately it comes down to, how do you feel? You know, we're a culture that's very much in our heads, right? It's all about logic. And if 1 + 1 = 2, and if it doesn't, then there's something wrong. And we've really become disconnected from our feelings, allowing ourselves to feel. And I think, like, fundamentally, our values are about how do we feel? What makes us feel good? What makes us feel like our most authentic self? And I love what you just said about, so often when we look at, you know, or ask people what are their values, it is about the doing. But when you fundamentally think about it, as you said, one of our top values should be being in self-integrity, right? Mm-hmm. Am I in integrity with who I want to be? Am I at peace with myself? And a lot of that, a value that I think is underrated, is courage. Because I think for us to live from a place of authenticity, from a place of truly living our own values and truly being in alignment, it requires us to be courageous. It requires us to be courageous because we sometimes have to buck against the trend of what society says. You know, if you think about, society says that success is, oh, this much money in the bank and this car and living in this certain neighborhood and those kinds of things. But does that make you happy? Because ultimately that's stuff. And yes, don't get me wrong, this stuff is great and I like nice stuff and I like living in a nice house. But does that make you happy? What is it that makes you feel alive? What is it that makes you feel truly your most fulfilled? I think fulfillment is a huge thing when it comes to values. There's a line, and I can't think of who the artist is, but it's a rap song probably. And there's this line which has always struck me. It might be like Nicki Minaj. I can't believe I'm quoting her. But there's a song that says, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. Mm. And I think just that is so profound, is, are you truly living? Can you get to the end of the day and say, I truly lived? You know, I was telling you before we started about, I was listening to Brendon Burchard, and to borrow something that he talks about all of the time, one of his, you know, mantras that he's known for, he says, you know, getting to the end of every day and asking yourself, did I live? Did I love? And did I make a difference? Because ultimately we're social creatures. Yeah. We want to make a difference. Yes, we want to live our best lives, but we also want to feel like we made a difference in society. And what that difference is, it doesn't mean we all have to be standing on stages in front of thousands of people or solving world hunger. Did you make a difference in one person's life? That's in your family, in your workplace. I think that's what ultimately is what life is. It's about, do I feel fulfilled? And also, was I happy? Was I joyful?
And I think, and I'd love to hear your opinion, when I live more in alignment and contributing to others and not in a victim mentality that, you know, like I will give more to others and not give to myself, and, you know, not in that, but really giving from the heart because I want to, you know. Do those elements contribute to my worthiness?
They absolutely do. When we feel, as you know, again, borrowing from Brendon Burchard, when we feel like we made a difference. Did I matter to myself and in somebody else's life? And I love what you just said about not from a place of feeling like I have to give, but from a place of I'm giving because I want to give, because this is what feels aligned for me. Because something else, and this is something especially for women, where we're the consummate givers. You know, we're from literally, we're nurturers. That's our nature, is we are the caregivers. And so oftentimes what will happen is us women, we will literally burn ourselves, set ourselves on fire to keep other people warm. And so there has to be a balance. It's almost like a scale, and there has to be equilibrium. We have to give to ourselves for us to feel worthy. I have to remind myself constantly that I am worthy of caring for myself. I am worthy of treating myself well. I am worthy of wearing my best perfume and my best makeup on a regular work day. But at the same time, also feeling that, fulfilling that need of giving, of helping others and getting fulfillment from that. Self-love is something that is such a huge part of worthiness. Us loving ourselves. And, something that was shocking to me was if you bring up the Google search bar and you type in, how do I learn to? One of the most popular search results that comes up, because, Google auto-populates based on popularity of searches. One of the biggest things that comes up, or top ranking, is how do I learn to love myself? Because we don't love ourselves. We've not been taught. And when we have been told, if you think about what you were told growing up, it was like loving yourself is egotistical, is selfish, you should give to others. And even I see this a lot with money, where people are like, I want to have money, but then they feel guilty about having money because, well, they're hungry people in the world and I should really be giving. And so maybe if I just don't make money, or if I give away all of this stuff that we tie to self-love, self-worth, it ultimately comes down to, do I love me? That is the foundation of everything. Any success that you want to have stems from how you feel about you. You can go to all the masterminds, go to all the strategy,
all the books,
earn all the money. But if you're not at peace with yourself, then none of that will be fulfilling. And that comes from self-love and self-worth, knowing that you are intrinsically valuable just as you are.
I want to take a tangent on that, self-love. And I'm sure a lot of people, when they hear self-love, they think about self-care. So self-love is going to the spa. Not that I hang out at the spa on a regular basis, but what's the difference between self-care and self-love? I think those two are often entangled together.
I think that self-care is a part of self-love. Self-care is valuing yourself and treating yourself, but it's not self-love. It's not. Going to the spa and getting a pedicure is not self-love. Self-love is about, do I respect me? Do I love me? Do I honor me? Do I keep my promises to myself? Am I living in integrity with who I truly am? And I think a huge part as well of self-love is self-forgiveness. I think that oftentimes when we make mistakes, we're so hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up because I shouldn't have done that. And it is being able to be kind, self-compassionate, kind to ourselves, and saying, you know what? That was a lesson I needed to learn. That was a lesson I needed to learn. That's all it was a lesson I needed to learn. And ultimately what determines whether it was a mistake is whether you repeat it. Because then, yes, when you repeat it, then you didn't really learn the lesson. And sometimes we do need to learn the lesson many times over. But it's about your intention, the intention of, did I intend to hurt people, or did I know intentionally that I would hurt people? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And it goes back to, there's a wonderful quote that I love Maya Angelou. I thought she was a phenomenal writer. And she has this quote that I quote often, where she said, when I knew better, I did better. But for me, I've always felt that it had a sense of judgment in it, because there's good and better, and I should have known better. And so for me, how I like to switch it up is to say, when I knew different, I did different. If we can understand that we're all doing the best that we know how, with the skills that we have, Some days we fail, some days we're better than others. But ultimately, it's about, did I do my best? Was I trying to do my best? Okay, maybe in that moment I wasn't trying to be my best, but now that I know different, am I going to try and be my best? And I think that's it. So self-love is about loving yourself. Yes, absolutely. Let's go to the spa and get our nails done. But it's also about self-compassion. It's about self-forgiveness. It is about being in integrity with ourselves. And it's also about building trust with ourselves. Because oftentimes the reason that we don't trust ourselves, the reason that we're so hard on ourselves, because we don't honor our word to ourselves.
Okay, that one, I hope people get it, because we break our word to ourselves, and then we get upset when people break their words to us.
Because people are mirrors, right? If people are mirrors, what I truly believe, whatever your belief is, the universe, God, whatever, whether you don't believe in anything, I truly believe that the universe is always mirroring who you're being, and also the lessons that you need to learn. It feels like, for those who have kids, kids are crazy about video games. And so I feel like life is like a giant video game. And it's so about, it's about, okay, you're at this level. Okay, you need to go to the next level, and the next level has different challenges, harder challenges. Okay, and then for you to, and that's it. It's the game of life that we're playing. We're constantly becoming, constantly evolving, constantly learning and growing. And that is the purpose of life. And I think that a fundamental piece of it is us being true to ourselves. I did Shakespeare at school, and there's that line that Polonius says to his son, "To thine own self be true." I think that is worthiness. That is self-love. That is when you can be true to yourself in your thoughts, in your words, in your actions, because anything else is nothing to do with you. As long as you are true to yourself and you show up as your best and do your best, that's how you feel worthy.
And at the end of the day, we all deserve everything.
Yeah.
Like the infamous tagline, because so much more is possible, because so much more is possible.
Mm-hmm. So we keep ourselves from abundance. Like, the abundance is everywhere. And when I say abundance, I don't just mean in terms of financial, because I think oftentimes that's what people think is financial abundance. Abundance is so much, it's life. It's living a rich life, living a life that brings you joy, living a life where you wake up every morning and you're excited for another day and you appreciate that you have another day. I think that that's the biggest thing. And we wait oftentimes till, we've had a health issue diagnosis, or when we're on our last legs, and then we're like, oh, I wish. Right now, what are the things, if you knew that I only have 30, 60, 100 days to live, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, if you knew that time was ticking, what are the things that you would do? What are the things that you would do different? And I think that that's the life, because oftentimes we're using life as an excuse not to fully live, but you want to live without regret. What do you want to remember when you get to the end of your life? How do you want to be remembered when you get to the end of your life?
And do something about it today, because each day we get closer or further from that.
Yeah. As I said, oftentimes we wait. I have a dear friend of mine whose husband is in hospice right now. Literally, she shared, which she just choked me up. She shared a memory. You know how Facebook surfaces up memories for you? About 3 years ago today, and literally 3 years ago today, she shared a picture where Facebook said, 3 years ago today, this is a picture of you. And he was the picture of health. He was racing bikes. They were on a vacation. It was wonderful. And he literally now is, we're all going to die. Sorry, breaking news for anybody who's listening who didn't know that. But we're all going to die. But he's probably, who knows, like any of us could get hit by a bus, but he's closer and having those conversations because he literally is at the end. And I wish we didn't have to wait until we knew it was the end for us to truly live. You know, back to that line I said, you know, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. And so it's like, what would it take for me to live?
And that's what worthiness is all about.
That literally is it.
Yeah, it's deciding that I am worthy. Stop the stories, stop the mental construct, and say, what would it take for me to live today?
What would it take? And it doesn't have to be, you know, let me sell everything I own and go live in an ashram somewhere. Like, just as you said, giving ourselves moments every day where we feel alive. And yes, the goal should be to live every day as if, you know, it's our best day. But starting, where can I start today? What action can I take today that would make me feel like this was a good day? Or that would make me feel like I truly lived today?
Because I'm also worthy of that.
That's the whole purpose of life. I think we feel like we came to earth and the purpose is for us to suffer enough until we die. And then there's this promise of, I don't know, some afterlife. And then that's where I'll go to be happy. That's where I'll go to be happy. And even, I know we're being facetious about, you know, about that, but even if you think about how much of our today we waste waiting until tomorrow or waiting until we've reached a milestone.
The weekend, the vacation, the retirement.
And yet today, you don't know that you'll get to the retirement or the weekend or whatever. And, you know, touch wood, you will get there. But we've wasted today living in a future that hasn't yet happened and not enjoying the present. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the quote where today is called the present because it is exactly that. It is a gift. You've been given a gift. And I truly believe that's what worthiness is. Knowing that I can be, do, have anything and everything that I want. And it starts with me choosing. You said a powerful word there. Choosing. Making a decision that I will start to live. I will live.
Before I ask you my last question, Sandra, where can people find you online?
Thank you so much. So I typically am on Instagram is the best way to connect with me. My handle is Sandra.Chuma. I also have a website, which is sandrachuma.com. And those are probably the two best places that I check the most often.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll make sure we put those. My last question. What is your definition of a life well lived? Fully lived?
Getting to the end of my life, but not even getting to the end of my life. For me, it's every day. Did I feel fulfilled? Did I truly live? Did I have moments of joy? Did I have moments of gratitude? I think that for me is fully living. It's not waiting for some future thing. It's not waiting until I have the money, I have the blah, 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 all of that. It's like, did I live today? Did I make a difference today? That for me is the definition of a life well lived is, do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel like I've truly stepped into my purpose, my calling, and am I truly living it?
That's such a beautiful question just to go to bed with, you know? Like, do I feel fulfilled today?
Yeah.
Because I'm fully worthy of that. Sandra,
Yes.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation on this topic. I know it's a delicate topic, especially when we are in a business context, but it's about time that we realize that we're worth of everything. And so,
And if I can just say one last thing, I feel like we separate and we're like, when I'm at work, I'm this person. In my business, I'm this person. And then I go home and I'm this other person. We're always one person. Who you are is who you are, right? And so I feel like we've got to start to bring the conversation together that there isn't a separation, that who you're being is who you're being, and that all success, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's with your family, whether it's at work, stems from who you're being, and foundationally, do you feel worthy?
Beautiful. Thank you. This was such a beautiful and needed conversation, because there's so many things that we don't step into because we're thinking we're not worthy. Even if you don't verbalize it that way, think about, how does it make you feel? That questioning, that doubting, that hesitation, that, should I call this potential client? Should I do this? Can I take half a day off? Can I take some time? Can I take some time to reply to emails? Can I have some space? All these things, underneath them is often a question of, am I worthy of it? Because at the end, we deserve that and so much more. Because yes, so much more is possible. Thank you for being here week after week, and I'll see you next Tuesday.